Guys, here to get into the Truman Show, which was directed by Peter Weir and released in the year 1998. And this is a perfectly made masterpiece from start to finish, very original. And it remains my favorite Jim Carrey performance and character in many ways because it's just a perfect balance of his comedic and dramatic mastery, along with just Peter Weir's directing, which is always original. Between this, Syndicate Hitting Rock, and Master and Commander, he's just one of my all-time favorite directors because they all resonate for different original kind of reasons. In this case, it's just a perfectly surreal kind of story from a perfectly written screenplay. It reminds me plenty of a lot of the Japanese new wave horror perspectives in the 60s, the most, like particularly director Hiroshi Teshigahara, because he kind of has a melancholic perspective on all this kind of just overwhelmingly insane kind of scenario. It's very thematic, and it keeps it on a comedy. I love how it kind of has this like comedy drama perspective on horror, like, which is just unique foundation. And this is just very strongly like feels like it's just a completely perfectly down to earth kind of way of telling such a insane kind of story. You could say of Carrie kind of facing intense steps of like delusion, but he's just all right anyways. In a sense, it's just kind of insane. It's depicting a very mind-bending late 90s kind of depiction in its own kind of way, which is ultimately life-affirming, I feel like, in a lot of ways. Like, it might feel, I know there's like a melancholic to it, but it's like, I feel like this is kind of definitely on a joyful, melancholic kind of end in its own sort of way. It's a very timeless kind of psychological study. It's subtly heartbreaking to see a man go through this, but it also kind of just feels like, well, he's kind of okay through it all in his own weird kind of way, strange kind of way, because he's just kind of carries his own carries confidence. I think his extent of confidence just perfectly shines through this film. And I'm really stoked for a rewatch on this because I've seen this a lot, but I feel like I really wanted to sit down to a deep dive into the screenplay of Silence. I've yet to do that with this project, but I've seen it so many times that yet it remains in my heart. Ways that are always ahead of its time, you could say, as it is just really unique. And I feel like this kind of just looks at a lot of just it might be one of the best depictions of delusion I've ever seen in a while. It's like a character who's like, it seems like the world's actually kind of hell for him, but he's kind of okay in his own way, do it all kind of deal. Like, which reminds me a lot of like, just a lot of psychological, philosophical depths going into that. But it's told from like, it's really funny, but also like dramatic as well in storytelling. It's like kind of an intimidating kind of scenario, but it's very human about exploring all of this, very trance-inducing in the way that it's told, existential. And it perfectly nails this tone without ever getting cheesy or overbearing whatsoever. It's the epitome of a beautiful film. Aesthetically strong, and it just handles this on a whole new level. This is just really quality from start to finish. And it just hits all the right notes from start to finish, really. This is just perfectly hilarious and satire. And perspective and influence from like a lot of like just Western perspective here, you could say. It's really just a masterpiece. And it's just, yeah, it's such a great performance from Carrey. Like, it can't be expressed enough on that level. And you also just have like, some other great people like Laura Linney, Ed Harris in this, and Paul Giamatti also. So that's always great. But it almost just feels like you're watching a surveillance camera of just like a man in daily life who doesn't realize how much he's being observed by like a lot of people. Kind of comes right in on like almost maybe a level of performance anxiety that a person's better off just like just keep that in the dust for that person kind of deal. But it's very satirical as well. About it's like subject in a lot of ways. It's subject matter. It's really original and strange from start to finish. It's really something else. Kind of like a beautiful way of looking at a nightmare scenario. Well, I suppose that's what Weir has to him. I guess his depiction is kind of like a beautiful way of looking at a horrifying scenarios in its own original sense. And then it's just kind of dealing with like a lot of just psychological like questioning, like a lot of characters seem to be wrestling with a lot of like the God complex, God wanting to be the villain kind of idea around it, you could say. Very, very fascinating, very surreal, and it's really just one of the best I've ever seen. It really remains perfect from start to finish. And there's so many layers here. There's so much going on in this wonderful masterpiece. So, it just gets strongly recommended from start to finish.